I'm sure at some point we've all wondered what our ancestors were like. Did they have any interesting stories? Who were they? How'd they live? I'm Ben Powell, and today I'm here to answer the question: did my great great grandmother Ivy Jessie Floyd deserve her bad reputation? Right, what better place to start than the beginning? It says here that Ivy Jessie Floyd was born in 1895 and died in 1975. For the most part, her early life remained pretty quiet. That was until 1911 when she met her first husband, Frank Parker. 2 years later, in 1913, she had her first child, which she also named Frank. It also seems that her 1-year-old son also died just a year later in 1915, which already you can see Ivy didn't exactly have the best life. What Ivy's been through already is definitely a lot more than most people can handle. On a brighter note, Ivy's second child, Leslie Charles Parker, ended up living a full life from 1917 until 1995. She also gave birth to her first daughter, Winnie Parker. Winnie also lived a full life, living from 1921 until 1925. Moving a bit further on, it seems Ivy moved from Dulverton, England to Merthyr Tydfil. Merthyr Tydfil is only about 20 minutes from here actually, which is pretty crazy. Skipping forward a little bit here, Ivy's second daughter, Nellie Parker, was the first person to actually be born in Wales in my family. She was born in 1928. So I've ended up reading on a little bit further here, and unfortunately it seems like Ivy had another streak of bad luck. The most tragic of all for Ivy, in my opinion, was that she gave birth to a son who unfortunately died at only 5 months old. His name was William George Parker. Just a mere 1 year later, her first husband Frank also ended up passing away. She immediately got remarried to a man named Noah Reese, only a few months after Frank's death. For the next 9 years, not much really happened, but after 9 years, in 1940, Ivy's second husband Noah Reese ended up passing away. Again, after only a few short months, Ivy got remarried again to a man named Thomas Evans. There's actually a short little interesting story here about Ivy. It states that she moved house to her birth and kept chickens and ducks there, and apparently she treated the animals better than she did people. This is the first time that Ivy's reputation has actually popped up. So far, at least to me anyway, Ivy just seems like a woman that had a just very tragic life. I don't really see where this bad reputation stuff is coming from yet. For a woman with such a bad reputation as hers, you'd think that there'd be a bit more documentation about it. Getting back on track to where we were, Ivy was unfortunately served another handful of tragedy when, in 1952, the Great Flood at Lynmouth, I think it's pronounced, ended up claiming 2 of her family's lives. These are her brother Tom Floyd and his wife, or Ivy's sister-in-law, Mary Ann Floyd.
In one single night, the main street had become a wild, churning river. It was dark red from the Devon soil.
Again, it seems like Ivy's bad streak is just never ending, because only 2 years later, her third husband, Thomas Evans, ended up passing away. I can't see anything else about her getting remarried, so I'm just going to assume that she didn't. So finally we come to the end of Ivy's life. Up until 1975, which was the year that she died, between the time of her third husband and her death, not much really happened. She celebrated her 80th birthday at her home, and then just a few short years later, she passed away in her home alone. Ivy was 84 when she passed away. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that knew Ivy personally have sadly passed away. However, my dad does have stories from his nan, or my great nan, of her experiences with Ivy. So I'm gonna do a short interview with him, see what I can find out, and then I'll come to a final conclusion on if I think Ivy's reputation is deserved. You know who Ivy is, don't you?
Yeah, Ivy was my great-grandmother.
Do you have any interesting stories about Ivy?
The thing interesting about Ivy was the reputation, because she was known to be really nasty and aggressive towards all her family and friends. She was married several times, and she was known as the Black Widow because she married several men, but as one died she'd marry another one, and they all got richer and richer. And she was aggressive to her grandchildren, such as my mother, who she played the piano, and if she played it wrong she'd slap her, so she was really nasty with people.
Do you think that Ivy deserves a bad reputation in the family?
But once I was researching the family history and hearing family's opinions, I could see why she was the way she was, because she lost her brother in the First World War, and she lost a few members of her family in the Ludworth floods, and she also lost children of her own, and plus as well her husband, which was my great-great-grandfather, was a bit of a player and a liar, because when he met Ivy in Devon, Ivy lived in a posh cottage, quite well-off family, and he promised her the best of everything when she came out to Wales. And when she came to Wales then, she had to share one room in a house with other people. So she went from wealth to poor. So, and her husband Frank was known as a liar, so she did have quite a rough life. So I think you can see why her aggression was like that.
So you think it was justified to an extent, where she was a horrible person, but at the same time you kind of see where she was coming from?
Yeah, because she had a really difficult life.
But there are also people that have had difficult lives and have become better people because of it.
But years ago, people didn't talk about their problems.
Take
for example, my grandmother, she had triplets in the 1950s and they only lived for a few hours. And I asked her, I said, Nan, how did you cope with that? And she just said, I just got out of bed and started cooking and cleaning. So you can see why Ivy was the way she was.
So that was the life of Ivy Jessie Floyd. Personally, I think that Ivy's reputation is justified. While it was obviously tragic what she went through, I don't think that what she went through justifies her attitude towards people and just the way that she treated people in general. I don't think that was the right way to go about it, because you always see people that have had tragic lives and have come out better people, or at least still treat people with respect. But Ivy did not do that. Ivy was just mean to people, to put it lightly. Ivy was not a nice person. Despite what she went through, I still think that her reputation is justified. But I can also see the other side of the argument. So really it's completely up to you whether you think that Ivy's reputation is justified or not. I'm not going to tell you what's right and wrong. That's up for you to decide, really.